Casemiro would have gone to Yale if he wasn't going to be a footballer. He's a bright man. He's a serious football thinker. Ancelotti sees something in him. Adores him. Thinks he's a future coach.
But did he fight the transfer, Ancelotti?
Ancelotti's a good Real Madrid manager because he doesn't fight transfers.
Well, as we sit here now, then, there's less than a week of the transfer window left, and Manchester United still want several targets in several positions, it seems. And it begs the question, Andy, how have we got to this, really? We all sat in that press conference at the end of May, I think it was. He'd already been in place, or it had been announced that he was going to take over for a few weeks before that. And we all felt at the time like it was a good opportunity for United to do the business early, to get everything in place, to start pre-season, if not the season. And we're now 3 matches into the campaign and stuff is still being sorted out. Are you surprised that it's come to this?
Not especially, because the noises I was getting early on in the window that it was very difficult for Manchester United. It's all right us sitting there saying we want business to be done early and United fans want business to be done early. You don't always get what you want in life. And I've said several times on this podcast, I know United feel that certain agents were trying to rip them off. It was that brazen, and I've seen and heard some of the figures quoted for certain players. And if you were in charge, you would have probably said, no, this is an absolute joke. Or if you looked at the agents fee, or you saw how some agents were trying to play Manchester United. But the bottom line is, you got to a stage that before Casemiro had signed, and United had lost the first 2 games of the season, that all feeds into the bad mood. Add on to that, a pretty poor recruitment policy in the last 9 years. Fans understandably don't have a lot of faith. They just don't, and I get that. And then when the new players come in and have a pretty rough start, then it all adds and it all just builds up. And yeah, of course you want your players to be signed for a good price in June, to come back raring to go pre-season. There's another reality is that Manchester United are not as attractive as they once were to every footballer. United cannot offer Champions League football.
I think that's why some people were surprised about getting Casemiro at this point, weren't they? I mean, there's been a lot said about the financials involved in it. However, if you listen to the player himself, you spoke to him before the Liverpool game as well directly. He seems very intent that he's come to Manchester United for the appeal of the club and for the appeal of the challenge that's ahead of him.
And the breakfast in this pub. He'd heard about
that. A small English breakfast, Andy, that you
I had
select.
the big one in the end.
I'm having one of them after this.
Good,
I'm starving. It looked great.
I also spoke to Rafael Varane about this after the Liverpool game, and he said he's exactly like me. He needed a new challenge. And I thought, I didn't need to bring that into it. And them two were really tight. I've never been in a position where I've won multiple Champions Leagues and had to face that decision. Look, clearly the financial side is a factor. Whether that's a 10% factor or a 70% factor, we're never going to get the answer to that. United have to pay top money. I do genuinely believe the Premier League is hugely attractive to all footballers. It's perceived to be the best football league in the world. And
his international teammates are in the Premier League as well, aren't they? A lot of them. There's a lot of Brazilian footballers about now.
He'll be playing alongside Fred.
Yeah.
Alongside Varane, Cristiano Ronaldo. When he will have spoken to these people about Manchester United and about the Premier League, he will have just got a series of positives. And then there's financial side. There's the security of a longer contract. And as someone pretty high up at Real Madrid said to me, this isn't the worst time ever to sell Casemiro. They're in a better position than Manchester United. They're the European champions.
They've got his replacement in the house already.
They've got two replacements.
Yeah, true.
They are exactly the players United should have got.
Yeah.
Or if United were in a better place with a little bit more, with a little less of the executive dysfunction, probably should have been in the market for. We know that, Camavinga seemed dead set on going to Spain, and that was what happened there. And Tchouaméni he was always going to be very expensive and the pie in the sky.
100 million euros he was as well, wasn't he?
Yeah. That really raised eyebrows at other clubs in Europe. I've had a couple of people say to me, because it happened very early on in the window, didn't it?
Yeah.
And one club said, that has set the benchmark in a bad way for everybody else.
Well, it would, wouldn't it? It would, yeah, because he's a reference point then, isn't he?
But he's not really fully proven. You know, I spoke to someone who is a full-time scout in France who said he's not worth anything like that.
But the ticker that's on the TV screens around this pub have got Anthony Gordon at 60 million quid. I mean, he was only a first-choice player for Everton about halfway through last season. The valuations are high, aren't they?
I found that one particularly crazy because I don't know. He's like a kind of player that you want to root for. He seems a very Everton player. Like he's, anyway.
Yeah, what does that mean, by the way?
Very Everton player.
Like maybe this is meant in a complimentary way. Scott
comes.
McTominay is a very Man United player. Like you want to support him, you want to back him. He's one of their own.
He's passionate for the club.
He's passionate for the club.
Okay.
He doesn't really.
I think
it'd
you've
be
just
weird
about
seeing him
saved
at
that.
Chelsea.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. But I mean, to 60 million, you kind of think that kind of price is for someone, as you say, that is proven 2-3 years. I mean, Casemiro for 60 million in that regard kind of looks a good deal, doesn't it? I mean,
yeah, true. Yeah.
I know he's 30, but he's absolutely proven. Obviously, the adjustment from the La Liga to the Premier League might be an interesting one. It's a different pace week after week after week. People can say he was man of the match against Liverpool in the Champions League final, which he clearly dominates in certain games like that. But every week, is that the same intensity that you'll get from Brentford, from Brighton?
Yeah, true.
Right. He's got intelligence. This isn't Di Maria. This isn't Anthony Gordon.
He sounds like a student, actually, of the game, doesn't he?
I say that with a reason, right? Before Manchester City played in Madrid in April, I got talking to this girl from Liverpool outside the ground, and she was living in Madrid. And she was going to the game. She said, I'm not really into football. She said, do you know Anthony Gordon? Yeah, he plays for Everton. I went to school with him. All I'll say is he wasn't in the top set at her school.
Right.
But clearly he's done very well. She went to school with all the Everton apprentices.
Right, okay.
And
another anecdote I didn't expect to come out
I
of the podcast.
don't think it's a decent
that's
anecdote.
Tottenham Devils, isn't it?
United in for Anthony Gordon. Is that what you're trying to say?
United were never in for Anthony Gordon. Right, the bottom right. I'll try and rescue us here.
Please.
Lads. Casemiro would have gone to Yale if he wasn't going to be a footballer. He's a bright man. He's a serious football thinker. Ancelotti sees something in him. Adores him. Thinks he's a future coach.
But did he fight the transfer, Ancelotti?
Ancelotti's a good Real Madrid manager because he doesn't fight transfers.
Ancelotti let him go to Porto 7 years ago and then apologised because he'd got it completely wrong. Yeah. Madrid haven't done badly out of this, Laurie. They've got a lot of money.
That's what I think most people look at and go, and clearly we saw it last night. People were excited to see Casemiro walk in.
It's a nice buzz around the stadium, people just catching a glimpse of Casemiro almost.
And the thing that he did with Real Madrid was quite touching. You could see his emotional side. I think that was nice to see.
He went back to Madrid to do that.
Specifically,
he flew here, flew back, and then flew back here again.
Oh, that's a lot of CO2.
Yeah. Bad man.
I think if you look at how United played against Liverpool, Casemiro, great, amazing. You plug him in instead of Scott McTominay, you have Eriksen in that pivot, and you can play that sort of football. Middle block, defend deep around your area, break, counter-attack, one a Rashford, one a Rolando, one a Sancho, run into space. And Casemiro will do that. It's if you want to play that pressing style of football that Ten Hag eventually developed Ajax into, that Casemiro might become a problem. Casemiro this season, I think, will be a success. It's when Casemiro is 32, 33 on those big wages and Ten Hag maybe wants to play a bit more expansive football.
Well, I guess the point is as well, he's such a different profile to Frenkie de Jong and even Adrien Rabiot, who's obviously been heavily linked as well, that it doesn't feel like he's an alternative to them in the sense that he's an equivalent. It's an alternative in the sense that he's a totally different midfielder.
Yeah, I said it on the Athletic Football podcast on Monday of Casemiro is the exact sort of midfielder you should have bought when Paul Pogba was still at Man United.
Oh, really?
Like a midfielder.
So is he actually the DM that you've always dreamed of?
I think a midfield three of Casemiro, Fred, and Pogba would have been very, very good. And if that had happened, even before Bruno Fernandes came, or when Bruno Fernandes came in, I was like, oh, right, we're off to the races.
That hasn't gone unnoticed, by the way.
Yeah.
The Paul Pogba connection. Certain people have noticed that and gone, oh, Casemiro next to him. You never know. Could have been something different.
And I think...
Yeah.
Really? Yeah.
The interesting thing now is Casemiro and Fred, okay, for Brazil, they are decent. You got to bear in mind, though, that's the preferred midfield. Two of those players are preferred ahead of players like Fabinho, ahead of players like when Fernandinho was still playing for the national team. It was still Casemiro as the sixth. So that's encouraging, but also Brazil play a sort of not high possession-based football. They also want to run into space as well. So if you want to play Ajax 18-19 without Frenkie de Jong, Casemiro is good, but you do now get into the question of who's going to play next to Casemiro. Christian Eriksen, looked knackered in the last 20 minutes against Liverpool. And I don't think Eriksen wants to play 30, 40 games as the deepest lying midfield player. No. And Fred, okay, we all know about what Fred's good at and what he's not so good at. So you do get to the question of, if you're going to play a 4-2-3-1, you need a passer. You need that progressive passer to pick up the ball collected from the centre-backs and move that ball to the other side.
Knowing United will finally get Tony Cruz, bring him in next to him with Luka Modric as well.
Yeah.
This will make you at home.
So all of this begs quite a clear question to me, Laurie. Did Erik ten Hag identify Casemiro as a player he wanted, or is it something that someone else in the club has pushed towards him and he's decided, yeah, it's a good idea, let's do it?
Yeah, I don't know. My gut would need to do more sort of questions, I suppose, but to people that would have the answers directly. But my gut is that it's somebody that's become available. United have known about him all summer.
Something that's doable.
There's a chance. Yeah, there's a chance. As soon as Tchouaméni goes in there, and they've already got Camavinga, Casemiro's position, albeit he's a Real Madrid legend, you're kind of wondering, okay, what's the next step for him? Clearly, he's been on the bench for his first La Liga game. Has that been the catalyst for then, okay, right, we're going to act now? And it just so happens that it chimes with United getting beat 4-0 by Brentford. And therefore, we're in active mode here. We need to, show our muscle and try and back this manager that we've put so much faith in. My gut is that it's that way round. And Ten Hag, he spoke very positively about him last night, very positively, has then gone, yeah, I can get on board with this. Okay, it's different than what Frenkie de Jong was, because, I'll say it again, we asked him in Melbourne about a holding midfielder, and he answered about Frenkie de Jong, and he answered about a holding midfielder in terms of getting the ball from deep, breaking the lines. Casemiro is different to that, but maybe Ten Hag has shown adaptability.
Well, there was quite a big difference as well between Brentford and Liverpool, wasn't there? We spoke about this again on the podcast about and Carl's written about it on the Athletic if you want to go and read it, but there was a lot of tactical variances between those two matches, which felt encouraging, didn't it?
Yeah, and that's what we've said. He needs to be perhaps pragmatic in certain ways as he's building, and this is part of the Casemiro, answer. Somebody that is close to the club was saying to me, this goes back a little bit to they're buying older players. It feels like a repeated thing, but to get a manager to work and get his system in place, he needs to win immediately to at least get his foot in the door.
True,
and that's what the Casemiro thing is kind of about. I mean, I do think in my head Nemanja Matic a little bit when, they signed him at the end of his, towards the end of his career, and we didn't really get the best version. But then even last season, he was still playing and doing well, but it wasn't him at his best. And a lot of people would say the mobility was an issue for a number of seasons. So that's also at the back of my mind. But I do feel like it's probably, this is a deal that we can do. I mean, I sort of said, could United not have done this when they were going for Adrian Rabiot? Apparently it was simultaneous, but I do wonder if, because then he could have been in the team for Liverpool, for example. I know
he wanted to be in the team for Liverpool. He stated that overtly as he said goodbye to Real Madrid, didn't he?
Good point. Just that visa and what have you.
He couldn't have played in them shiny shoes that he was on the pitch with, though, could he?
Would he have dealt with James Milner the same way he did at Anfield, was it, I think? And I mean, Scott McTominay had a bit. I wondered if that was why McTominay was in the team, because remember Bangkok, he gave Milner a bit of aggression, and I wondered if that's why he was in over Fred, because Ten Hag, again pragmatic,
height as well,
height at the set piece. Obviously Martinez. We talk about the set pieces.
Is he 5'9"? Someone needs to mention that.
No one needs to mention that.
I feel really bad for anyone who is 5'9" and is a United fan now.
Luke Shaw's actually 5'9".
Yeah, if anyone's not 5'9" as a Man United fan, he must every week go.
Luke Shaw, I'm telling you, he is.
No, he's definitely 6 foot.
He's 6 foot. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it has become literally the parroted reference point, hasn't it? We spoke about it again earlier on in the week. Just to sort of make a wider point on this, Andy, really, how coherent is all of this from a Manchester United perspective in terms of the transfer policy? The fact that there is still being an element of brickmanship being sorted out towards the end of this window, still more work to be done, which we'll speak about in a moment as well. It wasn't supposed to be like this, was it?
I don't think it is coherent. I think there's been so many changes at the club that the new system is not fully functioning. It's a club which has let the two leading scouts go, which doesn't always listen to the recommendation of the other scouts. I think it's a transfer policy which has been driven by the manager, which on one hand is fine, but what if the manager doesn't work out and you're left with players? This is why clubs have sporting directors.
to try and provide the link from one manager to the next, one regime to the next.
Because the manager's the most important person at a club, but when he loses 4 games, his position completely changes. So I understand entirely why United wanted Frenkie de Jong and why they pushed so hard for him, spent so much time in Barcelona, John Murta, Richard Arnold, did the deal with Barcelona. But the player didn't and doesn't want to come. And he's got a contract. And with time ticking on, with the results starting badly at the start of the season, United had to look at a plan B. And there was Rabiot, there was Casemiro. I'm much happier that Casemiro was signed rather than Rabiot. United have looked at a lot of players and are still looking at a lot of players. It looks to me like an imperfect recruitment system at the moment. John Murta's bringing people in who he's working very closely with. Maybe they'll find their feet. Maybe United will become more successful again, stronger. So players become easier to recruit because they want to play for Man United, because they think, I really like what Erik ten Hag's doing at Man United.
Last night would have helped in that sense.
That's
that
only
Liverpool
one game,
result,
mate.
wouldn't it?
Players don't judge off.
Do you not think watching that they would have been more encouraged than Brentford?
Of course he would, but they're going to look at league positions and cup wins. Top players.
Don't look at league position just
I'm
for the
not going
moment.
to go, all right.
14th.
United finished
Never
14th,
seen
but
that.
they beat Liverpool last August.
Yeah, true.
But it was hugely encouraging. I didn't think I could not see that coming at all. So I'm pleasantly surprised, and to the credit of all them players and to the manager, I think the manager's conducting himself really well. Pretty impressed. When we left the ground last night, all his family were there. I thought that was lovely.
Yeah, and it was gone midnight in leaving Old Trafford.
Could have been a horrible
Yeah,
experience, that, couldn't it?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, protests, the team losing, and instead it was really relaxed. It was smiling. They were all in the cream clothes. The whole family had the same colour clothes on.
Yeah.
And a great night. Good. Glad he's enjoyed it.
To round up the transfers then, Laurie, who's next?
Good question. Well, we spoke about Anthony, didn't we?
Messi.
I mean, that's it's going to get messy. A week to go.
Did you say we're going to get Messi?
He said we're going to get Messi.
Hasn't this been an issue in a boardroom once?
It's going to get Messi.
You put these boys in a pub. And watch
Gary
what
Cook
happens.
at Manchester City?
Gary
who
Cook,
said
it was,
something
Gary
like
Cook
that?
at Man City, yeah.
I think that's right.
I mean, you spoke about the fact of agents, pushing the numbers up at the start of the window. They're going to do that at the end of the window when they know that United are desperate. Certainly, Ajax will look at it and go, well, we've got a player here that we don't want to sell. They really haven't wanted to sell him. Clearly, they've got Hakim Ziyech, going over there, and that's something that's brewing. So they've got a replacement potentially ready, but they're still going to squeeze United. They did on Lisandro Martinez at the very end. They squeezed United a bit more money out of Lisandro Martinez at the end of that. For all that Edwin van der Sar is, a United hero, and kind of we sort of see him as a nice.
He's
guy,
auditioning for the role here,
there
isn't
is
he?
a bit of that, yeah. So Anthony's one. Cody Gakpo is another that's an alternative, or as someone sort of said to me this morning, could they get both? I mean, that sounds crazy. I know it would be, you're wincing, and I'm thinking, where does the money come from? But that's dependent on, I know this maybe go out after that, but the Wednesday game against Rangers in the Champions League. There's also a goalkeeper situation where, as we've reported, a number 2 that can push David De Gea.
A trap to fall into.
Watch this space. And I'm even hearing about a right back. If they could do some kind of work on the right back front. Wan-Bissaka came on against Liverpool. I'm not sure that Ten Hag is convinced by him.
David Ornstein said there's interest in Wan-Bissaka around the Premier League as well, so that seems like something to keep an eye on when we spoke to him at Old Trafford last night.
And that's one where you feel that's a late deal. That's like, okay, right, I'm going to look at my options now, and the season's panned
Even
out.
a loan, maybe. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Well, I mean, United, Eric Bailly, I think, to Marseille is pretty much done. So that's what United do well, loans out. It'd be nice to sell a player and get some money in. But listen, they're not in the position that Man City and Liverpool are in right now to kind of really extract top dollar. But I mean, we spoke about James Garner as well, just as briefly touching on players that could go out. He has been made available for a permanent transfer or a loan ultimately, which is going to surprise people. But that could be one where some money gets recouped.
Right, we better leave it there. I've gone red. I'm feeling a bit hot. This has been really nice, though, hasn't it?
Lovely.
Really nice. We should do this again sometime.
We are in a
Enjoyed
pub.
it.
Should we get Laurie a weird drink?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And a full English breakfast while we're at
I
it
need
as
some
well.
food, just something to line the
Can we
stomach
vouch
first
for it?
before we go fizzy
Food's
and
good,
crazy.
breakfast's
And
good.
by the way, the Fanta last night was not working at Old Trafford. I was very disappointed.
Dear.
It was just like clear water, and I'm so disappointed.
I'm sure the owners haven't got anything else to sort out at the moment. They can look into that.
That's the
straight
number
away,
one.
yeah.
Get on that. Forget the transfers.
Brilliant place to leave it. It got very random. It always does, doesn't it? But Carl, thank you for being with us. Andy, Laurie, thank you as well. And we'll see you on the next one. Well, we won't, but we've seen you this time. And I always say, and it always sounds weird on a podcast, but finally, we've seen you. So, yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.